Moc vám přeju hezký večer, jsem rád, že jste tady v takovém počtu dorazili. A já bych vás rád svým jménem a jménem tady Zuzky Čermákové, jsme z Vitry, přivítal na dnešní večeru, ale primárně si myslím, že co je důležité, že tady máme dva důležitý hosty. Já začnu zleva dámou, Pavlínou Louženskou, která transportérka vlastně, a jak jsme se spolu bavili a ptal jsem se jí, jak by se charakterizovala, tak mě řekla, že pomáhá firmám předvídat jejich budoucnost. Mm-hmm. Takže na její prezentaci se speciálně těším. Teda.
Díky moc, teď jsem
takže Pavlína Louženská. Pavlína Louženská.
Díky.
Dalším neméně důležitým hostem, který mi teď asi nerozumí, ale řekl jsem mu zhruba asi, o čem budu mluvit. A ptal jsem se, jestli mám mluvit angličtině, a říká, ne, jsme v Praze, budu mluvit česky. On mi říká, ale já nebudu mluvit česky, protože neumí česky. Tak je Rafael Gilgen. A Rafael Gilgen je trend scout, který pracuje pro Vitru a jeho vlastně jobem je to, že vlastně lítá po různých firmách kolem světa, technologických firmách, velkých IT firmách a vlastně snaží se předvídat vlastně a definovat, jaká nás čeká budoucnost primárně v oblasti pracovního prostředí, architektury a jak vůbec tyhle ty fenomény ovlivňují náš život. Takže jsem strašně rád, že ho tady máme a prosím teda přivítejte Rafaela. Co nás dneska večer čeká? Hned, jak tady vlastně skončíme s Zuzkou, protože Zuzka bude taky mít důležitou část tady na začátku, tak si slovo převezme Rafael a bude asi 40 minut nám tady se věnovat své prezentaci. Hned na to bude navazovat se svou prezentací Pavlína. Celé by to mělo trvat tyhle dvě prezentace dohromady asi nějakou hodinku, bych řekl, a samozřejmě potom bude nějaký prostor na nějaké dotazy, na nějakou diskuzi. Takže jen abyste věděli, co nás dneska večer čeká. Takže za mě to je v tuto chvíli všechno. Zuzko.
Hezký večer všem, já jenom představím, kolega Jirka Zavadil, má v České republice na starosti Vitru, takže já vás tu za nás ještě jednou vítám. Možná bych za Vitru ráda poděkovala taky Kempu, že nám umožnil v těchto krásných prostorech být a tuto akci pořádat. A má důležitá vložka na začátek je informace, že pro vás bude v průběhu přednášky v podstatě zpřístupněná platforma Slido. Za chvilku uvidíte QR kód, pomocí kterého se dostanete na platformu, kde můžete pokládat různé otázky, které vás napadnou, a v podstatě po prezentaci Pavlíny a Rafaela na ně přijde čas. Takže vás se rádi večerem provedeme a já už nyní předám slovo Rafaelovi, který začne.
Thank you. I got my mic here. Good. Yeah, first, good evening. I was last time in Prague in 2023, and this is for sure a lovely place. When Ilka informed me to do the session here at camp, honestly, I didn't know camp. But to all of these who make that possible, thank you very much. I talk in so many spaces all over the world, but this one comes into the number 10, one of the top 10. Even if you enter the building, I was here at something 3:30, around 4 o'clock. Immediately from the city in that area, something magic happens because this building is not easy to yourself. It starts something that you reflect and that you try to understand from what time is this building, what happens here. And now my job is to bring a little bit kind of insights in life into this building. After all, there's no finish line. Vitra recently hosted a Nike exhibition, the first exhibition of Nike ever at the Vitra campus. Nike becomes 50 years. And the people from Nike, they publish a book with this topic. And I was really inspired. And my journey today is about this topic. So you got my name, and this picture perfect describes my life. Between both pictures are 24 hours. The left picture is in the Hudson Yards. It's done from a picture from Norman Foster, where BlackRock is the tenant to the Spiral building of Bjarke Ingels. and the right picture happens on my farm. So the left picture was Friday afternoon, and the right picture was Saturday afternoon. So I got for Vitra the opportunity to travel around the globe, to see a lot of amazing things, what's going on, to get a deeper understanding of what happens in the world. But my private life is so different. This is my private life. I live not far from here, 2.5 hours. So if someone enjoy the session today and say, Rafa, you should do the same in my company, and maybe we need some advices or challenges, text Jirka and I will come back for sure. That's my private life. Embedded in the nature, we share the space with shelter horses, with ponies and halflingers, and that is our understanding of a firewall. So we have 7 of these ones, also shelter dogs, and you get no issues with your neighbor anymore. And I never went to university. I was trained 40 years ago, August 1st, 1986, as a carpenter, and that it is. So what is my mission at Vitra? And my mission at Vitra is something what Vitra has done over the years, to understand what is ahead of us. And I think in architecture is critical to do that. Whatever you provide in infrastructure or building, you should think about how is the world in 5, 10, 20, or 30 years. And that's my job. And I'm deeply inspired by a book by Rolf Fehlbaum, the second generation of our mastermind. It's called Project Vitra. Because even my job as a trend scout is much more bigger than my job description. Honestly, I don't know if my job description still exists. But what is a project? That is out of the book Project Vitra. So the company, in a way, gives all of us the freedom to go beyond. And beyond means whatever you need, whatever you believe. I wouldn't say you should be an anarchist to do that, but you should be brave, because it's not clear written. It's like on the street. You have 1 line, and then you have 2 lines. You should never cross 2 lines, but sometimes it's allowed to cross 1 line. That is part of my job. And what is still interesting, I went 30 or 40 times a year to the Vitra campus. I'm traveling around 120 days, and the rest I stay at home. So, but even every day, or even every time when I come back to the Vitra campus, something interesting happens. So to my job is not normal in a way, but how it happens. I take 10 years back. 10 years back, there was a shift, like today there is a shift. Today the shift is driven by artificial intelligence. 10, 11 years ago, there was a shift. There was these cowboys from the Silicon Valley, and they don't accept any more of the offices in the Silicon Valley. They thought there must be something different, creating a space. And so all these Google and Facebook and Twitters, they all get new offices with the idea to be the supercomputer for physical interactions. But now, something happens after the pandemic. I don't know if you know Drew Pollack. Drew Pollack is an American, an historian, and also an economist, and he came up with this quote. And in the beginning, if you read this quote, it's quite disappointing, where you say, shit, so what do we do? What do we do with all these buildings in Japan? I was 4 weeks ago in Japan. This is a financial district. So, and what do we do with all these buildings in Singapore? And by the way, they're all looking the same. And even if you go to China, this is a headquarter for Tencent. This is a kind of typology, how we organize work in the past. And now this idea, how to organize work, is challenged. And I love this quote from Buckminster Fuller, and I think, especially in these days, we should accept that. It's not a good idea to fight against the reality. In that moment, when you accept the reality, you start to work on your ability to adapt new things, embrace them, and come up maybe with new ideas. And 6 weeks ago, I found this chart, I think on LinkedIn. So Masaki Iwabushi, he is the head of foresight for JP Morgan. And he wants to share with us that if you think about the future, it's not about your domain as an engineer, an architect, whatever you do, economist. It's about art, technology, strategy, and future studies. And in between are tons of methods to think about the future. And I thought, wow, Rafa, that's interesting. And then I wrote a post on LinkedIn, and after the end, I got more than 40,000 impressions. Honestly, I don't get every time 40,000 impressions. So I asked myself, why are the people so curious about that? And you know why? in these days, we have a lack for guidance and orientation. We want to understand what is ahead of us. And by the way, this nerd, Masaki, he's so crazy. He's running an entire library where he collects all these papers, books, and methods, around 100. So what it means for us, there is a giant toolkit existing for us, for all of us, to be an explorer, to understand what's ahead of us, and to improve our life, the life of ourselves, of our families, for your city in Prague, for your country, whatever you want to do. And it's not to be a futurist. It's our duty to deal with these changes. So another thing is, I'm half German, by the way. The German, they love figures, and the Swiss people love much more figures. And half Spanish, so that is a good combination between Spanish siesta and to be precise. But the most interesting thing in these days is that here. In the past, we lose our instinct to deal with information. In the past, we lose to gut the things in our guts. And now it's the time to do that again. I've shown you my dogs. The animal on our farm, they're all trained by an instinct. Differently, but they have a strong instinct. We have shepherd dogs taking care normally about sheep, and they're really dogs protecting the farm. So trained to do, and they have a strong instinct. And we have to train our instinct again. How could we do that? As I'm not trained as a futurist, I help myself, and I say, okay, what is a period what we could oversee to get an idea? And for me, a period is 5 years. So 2025, 2030, 2035. And what is interesting, we could separate this information in it. We always have driving forces. Driving forces which has an impact into our life, private and business. Then we have technologies and norms of collaboration. Let's go to the driving forces. Currently, we have 5 giant driving forces. Think about technology change. Think about green transition. Companies want to become net zero. Think about demographic shifts. The European Union has no geographic kickback anymore because we are losing people. Think about, oh my God, the geoeconomic fragmentation and the economic uncertainty. If I would have the same talk 5 years ago, maybe one thing was written there. Now we have the capability to deal in the same moment with 5 of these driving forces. Second, technologies. Tons of technologies coming to our life. First, AI, paired with big data, virtual augmented reality. Second, robotics. The robots are quite close. Today I don't show a video about that, but believe me, it's called physical intelligence. Physical intelligence makes huge leaps into the future. And number 3 is everything about the energy transition. That are these technologies. And now is coming number 3. And number 3 is a giant blind spot at work, the way how we work. There's a guy who's called McAfee. He came out with the book, it's called The Geek Way. He wants to understand why the guys in Northern California invent so fast things, write so many codes. And he came up that they're working in a special condition, norms. First is, decisions are built on science, not about the boss makes the decisions, or like a people like me who is extrovert. Second is, people take ownership, means however make a decision, he has responsibility for that, and say, okay, I will do that. Third is speed. It's not about waiting, meeting, no, means execute. And the last thing is openness, means to be curious, even if you really believe this is the right direction, to be open enough to think about the opposite. Believe me, the norms, how the most companies in Central Europe are organized, is totally the opposite. And it's like a little bit like religion. I'm Catholic by birth, and even if I would not believe in God, I'm still a Catholic person, behave like a Christ. And what we have to overcome now to understand, okay, if we want to bring change into our life, we have to work on these norms. But another thing, and that is a little bit scary, it's the speed of the future. I do that now at Vitra since 11 years. And believe me, the first 8 years was a little bit like a sleeping wagon. I had time to think about things. I found something, I talk about that, and then it takes 3 years to become true, 3 years to become closer to us. But now it's different. I take you to Davos, to the World Economic Forum. These guys, the chief editor from the Atlantic magazine, this magazine published how the American Air Force was bombing the Houthis, and we could read that. This is the head of the NATO, and that is Mark Benioff. So he's asking now Mark, hey Mark, how is your life today? And now we listen to Mark.
You know, I was saying, said to the group, you know, we're going to be the last CEOs. We are the last CEOs who are only going to be managing humans as our workforce. That from this point forward, like, this is the marking, that we will be managing not only human workers, but also digital workers. And that is just incredible.
So he started that talk like, hey, we were sitting yesterday together by fondue, and then I mentioned to the other CEOs, hey, think about for a second. We are the last generation of CEOs which only deal with humans. And then the next generation, like from today to tomorrow, they deal with machines also, like artificial intelligence, agents, or robots. So it's not about the best team tomorrow, it's not about you. It's about you and your counterpart as a machine, man and machine. And that happens so fast. But I always ask myself, okay, Rafa, but there must be a kind of a future formula. So what should companies have in mind, organizations, to deal with these changes? First is, we should organize ourselves in ecosystem. This chart is from the MIT in Boston. I was there last week, and in Boston at the MIT, there is a house. It's called the Engine. You should Google that. You get, by the way, all the slides. And in the Engine, they do tough tech. Tough tech means they work on mankind challenges by technology. But they know, the PhDs, we can't do it alone. The ecosystem partners are the risk capital partners, the government doing the laws, corporates, other academia partners, and ecosystem partners. So that means it doesn't matter how big your company is today. Even a BMW or Allianz or Vitra, we have to open the doors and surround ourselves with other people, because to invent a company tomorrow, we should think in ecosystems. Second is, what are the driving forces in business? These are the businesses of tomorrow. Still number one, I never understand that, is e-commerce. Number two is artificial intelligence, software and services. Number three, cloud service, and so on. By the way, to get you an idea, you all are familiar with the company BYD, these Chinese car manufacturers. But this Chinese company does not only produce electric vehicles, currently they're installing the largest battery storage on planet in Saudi Arabia, 3 times larger than the largest storage today in the United States by Elon Musk. And these guys are all jumping to robotics. So that means there are 6 or 7 companies on planet, like Siemens in Germany, who cover more than 2 or 3 of these things. And there's something, a kind of a blind spot. And that is artificial intelligence comparing with creativity. There's this question, okay, come on, artificial intelligence could be creative. The main issue from the technology review was full of the relationship between artists, designers, DJs, architects, and artificial intelligence. So is there improvement? And there was an exhibition in the Parsons School of Design where they invited 30 architects to deal with artificial intelligence, and they make an exhibition. And the red line, so the feedback of all of these guys was the same. So they mention, in that moment, when they really collaborate with artificial intelligence, a door opened to a space where they didn't believe that this space was existing. So that means they augment themselves. It's like you get the best buddy to do something, and you achieve things you never achieved before. But there's a giant blind spot. You have here this beautiful space, I think now 60 or 70 years old, in your beautiful city in Prague. It is a physical reality. But in that moment, something happens. If you would ask people to describe the world like this was done by ETH PhDs and professors, they should describe their job. And in the beginning, they want to write quite abstracts, and then they say, no, we do something different. Each of us share a picture with an item, with a machine, and that describes what they do. So that is one part of understanding. But in the same time, there's a world which happens in the virtual world, like not existing, immaterial, intangible things. And 7 years ago, I had a talk at the OECD Forum in Paris about physical survivors in a digital world. Because in these days, we put on any kind of physical item a digital layer. To give you a little bit more about that. So every physical product today got a virtual alternative, if we like it or not. And first, we should first understand that, and second, we should accept that. That means, if you build a building today, or like BMW producing a new car, the A-Class, or Vitra even with the Minshare, all these artifacts or buildings or products, they get a competitor. And that happens in the last 50 years. 50 years ago, the assets of the company was material assets, machine, cars, any items. And now it's the opposite. 90% of the value of a company are intangible assets. So the world is starting to dematerialize themselves. And here you see a chart of investments from 1995 to 2019 in the States and 10 large European countries. And you see the amount of intangible assets. Just to give you an idea, at Vitra, is intellectual property or the value of the brand. Why that is so important to understand? Whatever we bring to the planet, if it's a new chair, if it is a house, if it is a car, we should ask, what is the relevance of this physical product for the society? And in the future, it's much more to create resonance and meaning, like a building to shelter for rain and heat. And ask yourself now, 6 years from now, what will exist 6 years from now, what does not exist today? Or maybe how relevant is what you do today in 6 years from now? For yourself, for your customers, or for your company. And the question of relevance is quite important, because the question of relevance is a question not of surviving, but to being part of a transformation. And how to get there? It's called future literacy. Future literacy is the mantra of the UNESCO. So the UNESCO has one goal, to bring people back into their life first, but second, to help people to deal with all these circumstances and challenges around them. And what is, for me, the most important finding doing my job is you can't address the future to someone else. You can't address your future to someone else, and even not the future of your family and your company. It's your duty to be a futurist, in a way. Maybe not like me, in a profession, but you should really bring the future frequently up to your mindset. So what I do is, first, I start every year with questioning. This year with 63 questions to several perspectives about artificial intelligence, about human needs, about architecture, about leadership. And these questions help me to challenge the status quo. Second, I run a giant library in the internet. It's called, the app is called Flipboard. If you go there today, there must be 4,500 articles. But what is much more interesting, around 140,000 times people read there. It's open 24/7 for anybody, so you don't need a code. You just type in Google, Raphael's Flipboard, and you get there. And if you open now the Flipboard, you find articles, reports, insight about technology change, transformation technology, transformation in leadership, transformation in city design, transformation architecture. So what here important is to understand, maybe you are trained in one domain as a designer, architect, engineer, or HR expert, but forget your domain. You should enjoy the opportunity to walk through the entire garden. Yeah? That means if you have no clue about the other fields, the other domain, you get lost. So it's your opportunity now to oversee that. And what happens always when I talk to people, they all have assumptions how the world is tomorrow. We make decisions based on our assumptions. And now we find out, oh my God, my assumptions are challenged. The world is different. For that reason, it's so important to get a lot of insights. The best of my job is to grab my bag, to leave the farm, to go to Munich to the airport, and to explore the world. Because if you really want to understand the things, you have to leave your computer and your workstation. You have to go there. Like I went with scientists from Fraunhofer Institute to Saudi Arabia. Try to understand how a country which was so controlled by oil, want to overcome that, installing the most powerful AI data centers, bringing hyperscalers to the country, start production, and also green hydrogen. So we also went to the construction sites. By the way, this guy here is from your country, Petr Zuzka, right? He's not here today. Today he's in New York. Maybe you know him. So he joined us also. And that is so important to get a brighter picture. With one idea. Think about, beginning from tomorrow, you had like a pilot, a weather map. You had a map, a panorama in front of your head, which gives you guidance orientation by any decision. So any important decision you make in the future, you've gotten deeply an idea about the consequences and the opportunities. And that is the idea of the panorama. I want to guide you now through 3 of these topics. The panorama has 8 topics, and I get out 3. First is generative age. The generative age is everything about artificial intelligence. When we talk about artificial intelligence, we talk about the blue, dark blue line is automation. But the most powerful line is, the bright blue line is augmentation. Augmentation is the same story like at the Parsons Institute. Think about, you would use artificial intelligence to augment yourself, to get more rougher, to get bodies for any kind of things you want to do. Second, how use people artificial intelligence? I was shocked, honestly. Think about, after 1 year for therapy and companionship, how could that happen, that a technology item get trust so fast that people say, I use it for this use case? That shows you the acceptance, in a way. The next thing is, you know all the apps on your smartphone, but what is much more valuable, that are the AI agents. Agents are dealing without interactions from your side, by themselves things. Booking a restaurant or a flight, going shopping for you, or interacting in business from one business partner to the other ones. 2026, they are on your smartphone. 2028, they are part of the ERP system. But one thing is important to understand. AI without context has no value. And context without artificial intelligence has either no value. We humans, we have one capability. It's like in sport. As more you train, you get better. But we forget that in business. I think now in business is a good time to train, to find your limits, to really endeavor and train your endurance to go beyond the existing. And that links you to this augmentation part. I just give you one idea, an example. Norman Foster is building in Lapund, in Engadin, a building called the InHub. The InHub is dedicated to the community in Lapund, and it's the idea like to go there to think about the big questions for mankind. But even for sports, for professional sports, to go there to train. And I should give a workshop for the Vitra guys from Switzerland for this Lapund team. And then I mentioned to Philipp Pabst, the boss from Switzerland, hey, Philipp, what should I do there? They work together with Norman Foster. They know everything. And hey, Rafa, you have to go there. I promise you come there. I say, okay. And then I ask myself, okay, how could I augment this project? And I don't know if you're familiar in Davos. It's a Schatzalp, a building in the 19th century. People, they have breeze issues, they went up there. And the Schatzalp became the magic mountain. And the German Thomas Mann write a book, and he win the Nobel Prize for this book. And I asked my ChatGPT, trained with a ton of papers, hey, what is the similarity with the Schatzalp and Lapund? And I get a proper 2 pages, a philosophic approach about the value of the building in the year 2030 and beyond. That is augmentation. By the way, where are we now? If you would ask an IT guy, they would say, okay, we are today where the internet was in 1993. That is here. And recently, the IBM guys published 200 pages about the value of AI. I think we are just in the beginning, so it's a good point to start. Next topic is called extended realities. That's the same topic with what is if the physical world is disappearing. There is a company, and I show the video, the first video of this company in 2023. The company is called Journey, sitting in Berlin. And what they do is they promise in business to consumer So whatever a company, whatever a customer wants to explore and experience, he could do that by his smartphone or by his computer at home. And they do that for Vogue, for Clinique, for BMW, for several customers. And now they say, hey, we could do the same in the way how people work. And maybe use Teams or Zoom or WebEx, and think for a second you would use this one.
Welcome to View, the virtual integrated employee workspace from Journey. View is a new horizon for the future of work. Designed around 4 key areas, it helps teams communicate, collaborate, develop knowledge, and strengthen connection from across the globe. Share your screen and present ideas with real impact. Then discuss with your team via voice, video, and text chat. Import detailed 3D models and deliver feedback from all angles, or just send an emoji shower of support. New hires, onboarding is easy with a dedicated learning center. Browse videos and presentations, test knowledge with quizzes, then receive rewards for completing the course. Need something more specific? The AI expert is trained on your company manual to answer any questions on demand. What about culture? How about a company pin board filled with photos and comments from the entire team? Or a space to recognize the real heroes of your company? Just don't forget to take a couple of minutes break for.
So that all happens in one surface. If you go to the factories today, people in factories, they are trained by augmented virtual reality to get the important information in a second. And this idea is the same one, to get the information, whatever you need, in a second on one surface. The next topic from the panorama is shortage of resources. You have seen this high-rise building in the beginning, so what do we do with that? This building is for an HSBC in London, in Carnegie Wharf, and the tenant moves out. So the tenant moves now to the city, and the owner of the building has a cool idea. He has done an architecture competition. And all architectures in the competition had the same idea. They had the idea to build a vertical city district. So to understand what is a great city district, and then to stack them and say, okay, that would be perfect for Carnegie Wharf, because in Carnegie Wharf, only office buildings exist. And what they've done then, they make a kind of taxonomy. So what would be the best way to organize then in terms of where's the hotel, residential, office, and so on? And then they check the zones to understand, is that possible for a hotel, for residential, or even for work? And at the end, they go to the facade, and this is the winner. So the winner is Kohn Pedersen Fox. And when that was announced, the entire neighborhood say, yeah, this is amazing, because that was an only office city district. And by the way, the asset class office was invented in the modernism 100 years ago. But nobody wants to live in an area surrounded by offices. And even office people, they don't want to be in an alien area only with offices. And that is one movement, what we do with the old things. But even at Vitra, this building is from Alvaro Siza at the Vitra campus. In the back, you see the fire station of Zaha Hadid. And this building get a new birth, because we don't need this amount of building. Close to Vitra, there's a university, DHB Lörrach. And now this university jumps in a portion of this building of Alvaro Siza. So, and these are also tons of opportunity how to deal with the existing. The critical thing, or the important thing to understand is, in this shift, think about the picture from Frank Gehry and Mark Zuckerberg in 2010, and now we're in the same situation, a little bit different from the context, how we deal with that. And what we have to understand, we are coming from a knowledge-based economy, and we have to go to a skill-based economy. What is the difference? If you would ask managers today, they would say, the most important thing what I have to do is, I have to upskill my workforce. Means Rafa, who is trained in several skills, he should learn much more things. Because as much Rafa could learn, as more I have the ability to adapt in a changing economic system to produce new services and products. And that happens now more and more companies. Companies understand talent is not fixed. Whatever you are educated, whatever you are trained, whatever your domain is, that is the past. because we can train and learn so much more things. But how should we learn these things? Listening more podcasts, going to school, reading more books? No. The secret power is social learning. Social learning is an old typology, but social learning is now getting more and more important by the power of artificial intelligence. Because artificial intelligence has no silos. Artificial intelligence never sleeps. Artificial intelligence is increasing. And we have to find out, okay, how could we deal with that? And that brings me to our superpower. The superpower of us humans is our sociality. So that means you learn from each other. When I learned carpenter, you never learned carpenter by reading books or listening to podcasts. Even podcasts 40 years ago didn't exist. But you learn carpenter by participate and by oversee what others are doing. And that is now coming back. But how could you organize social learning in an office, in a workspace? Let's go to Switzerland.
I am John Kuilman. I'm working on and leading the workplace design team at the global headquarters here in Zurich. On has been going through a hypergrowth, but we still have the community deep in our hearts. We would like to provide a workplace that is very open, but also is very democratic. One of the key elements is being able to connect in an informal way, whether this is happening through our micro kitchens, soft seating areas, or the communal platforms where we are exchanging ideas or do the actual teamwork. We think it's very clear that no one is going to the office anymore to do their work. I think the pandemic learned us that we could do our work anywhere. What we can't recreate at home is a personal experience, but also a platform for changing ideas and have these social collisions that you would normally have online. To us, it's very important to have a critical mass amount of people in the workplace, as it's helping to have the necessary friction, which often leads to creativity.
We are a company on now since more than 12 years. And I think that is a great example how we work at Vitra. So at Vitra, it's not so like that we talk about activity-based work or desk sharing. It's much more deeper understanding what is ahead of us and to engage the customer, to be brave and to go beyond the existing. And out of that, then there's a perfect match that you understand that it is social learning and how to design an office for social learning. My last topic, I name it human to human. After 11 years at Vitra, the good thing is we are surrounded with human-centric workspaces all over the world. I would say when I'm still visiting, I'm visiting around 20 countries a year, and in 70% of the cases, the spaces where I walk in, they're human-centric design, even for 4 generations in a good way. But what is still critical, because people in Japan, they have to transform. People in the States, in Germany, Norway, and even here. But we hate progress. We want to do the things like we do the things. We don't want to go beyond. And there is a missing piece in understanding of technology. Think for a second, what if you do not technology breakthrough, you would do human breakthrough? With the same team you're surrounded today, you would do things what you wouldn't believe you could do that. And for that reason, architecture is a key resource. And out of that perspective, we should design spaces. Out of that perspective, we should design kindergarten, university, and schools. Not to control. Control is illusion. We should think about the next kind of spaces. Vitra has customers all over the world. And there is one similarity to these customers. The most of them, they are really progressing and they want to go beyond. And now we are on a tipping point. I think we believe we know everything about architecture. But what we don't know is still the relationship between the human brain and a space. And now we start to collaborate. There is a university in London with neuroscience and neuroarchitecture to get deeper information how a space, if it is a museum, a shopping mall, or an office building, how this is interaction with us, helping, supporting, taking care about the human needs. Good. Coming to the end. First, now you know why I show that slide first. After all, there's no finish line. It's like you go to bed every evening and you have 2 more questions than answers. It's like you go to bed every evening and you know you're not finished. It's hard to accept, but if you come into this mode, every morning is much more brighter because there are so many things to do. Second is, the world is not about the roughers. It's important to train future literacy, but the most important part for Europe is our memory. I was last week preparing a tour for a Japanese group called Mitsui Fudosan. We went to San Francisco, to Chicago, to Boston, and to New York. The United States next year become 250 years. 250 years is nothing. There are companies in Europe that have 250 years. But what we forget is we don't deal with the memory of a company. What is the memory of a company? Think about all the pictures of your grandfather, grandmothers, maybe artifacts, gifts you get from them, from your family. You take them out of home. Nobody would do that, but we do the same in the way how we work. I'll give you an example. I have done a job for Porsche, and then the guys told me, hey, Rafa, thank you very much. We want to award you with something special. We go to a place which is secret. So you get a cab over your head. They go 15 minutes from the headquarters to a giant warehouse. And in this giant warehouse are 400 cars. Every Porsche which was ever produced, the cars which wins Le Mans, Daytona, Nürburgring, Sebring, so super special. And I was in this space with the curator. But then, because they told me, Rafa, nobody can go in there, I see people. Hey, what are they doing? Oh, they are designers from Weissach, from Porsche Design Center. Okay, but what are they doing here? They're looking for inspiration. What? Yeah. They go into the history to understand what is a good shape. And then there was another group, there was engineers. And the engineers, they want to understand how they invented 20, 30, 40 years ago the first aerodynamic parts. I show you another thing about the memory of a company. This machine is called the Incredible Machine, done by the German company Festo. Festo is a world-leading company in pneumatics. And this machine was exhibited at the Hannover Messe. And now it's in the headquarters of Festo. And you see the butterfly on the left. They are also kings in bionic design. So you start the machine by waving your arms in front of the butterfly, and then 100-year history of Festo start to move. So if you are a student, if you are a person working 20 years for Festo, if you are a customer, you are aware of what the history. And for sure, at Vitra, we are surrounded by the history every day. And companies should bring this kind of history back into the spot, not in part of the books, but in part of tangible assets. Coming now to the end. So what is the duty of design? Whatever we design and build. And I was inspired by the mastermind Leonardo da Vinci. In the pandemic, I have seen a movie. By the way, I don't go to every museum on planet, yeah? So I'm a normal person, but in that moment, I was really like, oh my God. I've seen a movie about a picture for Leonardo da Vinci, and the picture is called Salvator Mundi. The story about the picture is there was a guy who found this picture in an auction in, I think it was in Boston or Chicago, for $500. And then he thought, oh my God, that must be a mistake. I don't believe the value of the picture is $500. So he bought the picture for $500. And then he go to the experts of Leonardo da Vinci, 7 experts over the world, and 5 of these experts mentioned, I believe that is the lost Leonardo. So that was the name of the picture. Okay. And then it started 5 years of preparing the picture for the first auction. And the owner of AS Monaco bought this picture, I think, for 26 million euros. But, so the owner bought the picture, and then he find out the guy who makes the deal put 2 million in his own bucket. So without telling that, because no one want to pay taxes, so you don't know what was the value of the picture. And then he was a little bit pissed off and gives the picture to the auction. And now something magic happens. The guy of Christie, who was organizing the auction mentioned, wow, the picture is so beautiful. Now, we should not talk to the expert of art. We should bring this picture all over the world, to Tokyo, to Singapore, San Francisco, Paris, London, that people get the opportunity to see this picture the last time before a person buys this picture. To make the story short, at the end, $440 million was paid. But I show you now what happens if people watch on a masterpiece. You see now the visitors going through the space, watching to this amazing picture. Enjoy. Thank you.
Takže jak navázat tady na tuhle prezentaci, děkuji ještě jednou Rafovi. Bylo to, myslím, že hodně silné pro nás, pro všechny. A myslím, že emoce je to podstatné, co v každém z nás, jako v individuálních jedincích, si zachováme, i když technologie se bude dál vyvíjet. Já tomu teda osobně pevně věřím. A jaká je teda budoucnost technologie? Jaká je budoucnost lidství? Je důležité se bavit o vkusu, o emocích jedinců nebo skupiny? To jsou všechno otázky, na které nám snad odpoví i Pavlína Luženská. Prosím, přivítejte ještě jednou Pavlínu Luženskou.
Já poprosím ještě o prezentaci režii. A než mi ji nahodí, tak já mám pro vás jeden úkol. Já když jsem poslouchala Rafu, tak mě to ohromně inspirovalo. To, jak mluvil o tom human to human, o ekosystémech, o social learning. A tak vás teďka poprosím, abyste si otočili k člověku, který sedí za váma a podali si s ním ruku. A vytvořili jsme jeden takovýhle obrovský ekosystém a learning culture. Díky moc. Já vás vemu do minulosti. Představte si, že je rok 1995 a vy jste potkali nádhernou holku. Je vtipná, je chytrá, je totálně zábavná. A vy víte, že je to matka vašich budoucích dětí. A tak hledáte perfektní místo na rande, protože ji nechcete vzít do té svý obvyklý zaplivaný čtyřky, kam berete všechny svý kámoše. A tak protože je rok 1995, tak otevřete Mladou frontu, najdete tam sekci s recenze restaurací, najdete tam nějakou, co napsal váš oblíbený kritik, a ta recenze bude dlouhatánský text a jeden rozostřený obrázek. A na základě toho vyberete tu perfektní jednu restauraci, kam ji vezmete. Je rok 2010. Vy jste potkali nádhernou holku. Je vtipná, je krásná, je zábavná a má hodně bitcoinů. Takže víte, že rozhodně chcete, aby to byla matka vašich dětí. A tak hledáte perfektní místo na rande. A tak otevřete Yelp anebo Google Mapy a hledáte něco, co má 5 hvězdiček, nebo aspoň 4,8. Je to takový crowdsourcing experiment. Spoléháte se na know-how lidí, který jste v životě neviděli, pročítáte recenze, který píšou a na základě toho nakonec vyberete restauraci, kam budete. Vyberete ji podle krátkého textu, recenzí a hlavně těch hvězdiček. Je rok 2019. Už to znáte. Potkali jste nádhernou holku. Je chytrá, je vtipná, je zábavná a netráví moc času na Instagramu. Vy ale tam trávíte opravdu hodně času, takže víte 100% kam ji berete. Berete ji do té restaurace, kde už byli úplně všichni a jenom vy ne. Major FOMO. Celý to rozhodnete na základě jenom obrázků a vibes. A na základě z toho jste vybrali tu restauraci. Proč vám tady vyprávím příběhy o randění? Protože tyhle 3 příběhy ukazují, jak se změnilo naše vnímání vkusu a kdo vůbec určuje ve společnosti, co je krásný, co je vkusný a co po čem toužíme. Dlouho to byli kuřátoři, kritici, recenzenti, kteří drželi ty otěže vkusu. Bylo to pár desítek lidí, kteří studovali, kteří jako jediný viděli Monu Lízu naživo a kteří ve chvíli, kdy vydali recenzi, napsali ji do časopisu Domus nebo do Vogue, tak mohla někomu nastartovat anebo zničit kariéru. Bylo jich pár na světě a my jsme respektovali, co říkají. Potom v roce 1995 přišel internet. A najednou se všechno demokratizovalo a z nás všech se stali kurátoři, kritici, recenzenti. Kdokoliv z nás mohl jít, vygooglovat si, jak vypadá Mona Lisa a napsat svůj názor na internet. Byla to ta zlatá doba internetu, kdy jsme věřili, že internet je to skvělé místo, kde kdokoliv z nás může otevřít Yale a YouTube a začít studovat historii umění. A věřili jsme to, že tohle je takový konec světa, kde všichni už budeme žít šťastný a nahatý v komunitě. To nevyšlo. Protože každá z těch recenzí, kterou jsme napsali, byl kousek kontentu. A kousek kontentu znamenal kousek dat. A tak poprvé začaly vznikat algoritmy a vznikat For You pages. Ty stránky, které jsou designované jenom pro vás, abyste tam našli tu jedinou věc, která je zrovna vhodná pro vás. Stali se z nás takový koně s klapkama na očích, který dostávají do feedu jenom to, co by pro nás bylo úplně perfektní. Ale to, co jsme si neuvědomili, je, že to možná nebylo perfektní úplně pro nás, ale možná pro někoho, kdo na té restauraci měl nejlepší marži, anebo pro někoho, kdo si zaplatil inzerci. Algoritmy aktuálně ovlivňují cokoliv, co se kolem nás děje. To je jako máte doma pračku, i s jakým chodíte klukem. Nebo já rozhodně. A je to něco, co je všudy přítomný u nás. A je to něco, co každým dnem podporujeme. Ve chvíli, kdy čemukoliv pošleme like, tak to znamená, že to posíláme do feedu dalším lidem. A ty, když tomu pošlou like, tak to posílají do feedu dalším lidem a tak dál a tak dál. Říkáme tomu feedback loop a znamená to, že se algoritmy naučily, co je ta věc, která se nám všem líbí úplně nejvíc. A tak jsme nastavili datafikici vkusu. My najednou dokážeme vyjádřit krásu rovnicí. Poprvé v historii to, co je krásný, neurčují lidi, ale určují to stroje. A tak nám stroje vytvořili příběh, který vypráví pořád ten samý refrén. A tak naše feedy vypadají úplně stejně, naše obličeje vypadají úplně stejně, naše auta vypadají stejně, naše pózy na Instagramu vypadají stejně, naše aesthetics vypadají stejně, naše loga vypadají stejně, naše weby vypadají stejně, naše brandové designy vypadají stejně a vypadají naše stejně i interiéry. Nedokážete říct, jestli tenhle interiér je v Buenos Aires, v Paříži anebo v Praze, protože je nadizajnovaný tak, aby se líbil co nejvíc lidem. Autor The New Yorker, Kyle Chaka, tomu říká airspace. A říká, že jsou to interiéry, které jsou designované pro Airbnb, abyste měli šanci, že co nejvíc lidí si je vybere a co nejvíc lidí se u vás ubytuje. A tak jsme se dostali do světa, kde už vidíte jenom ty samý lidi. Head of Policy TikToku říká, že se 7 videí, které uvidíte na TikToku, jich 5 potvrzuje vaší bublinu. 5 potvrzuje všechny ty věci, na které jste zvyklí. A jenom 2 z nich vám umožní jenom maličko, jako opravdu jenom maličko, zahlídnout za roh, vykouknout úplně někam jinam. A tak nám se jen velmi těžko utíká z toho, kde aktuálně jsme. A současně, ve chvíli, kdy máme návod a rovnici na to, co je krásný a co se všem bude líbit, tak tu rovnici můžeme násobit. A tak přišly technologie a my jsme schopni multiplikovat texty, weby, loga a tak dál, co fungují, otázkou jediného kliku. I proto, když dneska otevřete LinkedIn, tak 90% postů nepsali lidi. A proto máte tak blbý pocit, kdykoliv tam přijdete. Já nevím, jak vy, ale já kdykoliv poslední dobu otevřu Instagram, YouTube nebo cokoliv jiného, tak se strašně nudím. Protože celou dobu scrolluju a jsou to pořád ty samé věci, jsou to pořád ty samé příběhy, pořád ty samé texty, pořád ty samé loga, pořád ty samé vizuály. A je to něco, co nastartovalo příběh, který nás posune úplně jiným směrem. Protože já vím, že mě celou dobu posloucháte a říkáte si, Pavlíno, takhle strašný to být nemůže. Nemáš tam ještě něco, co je pozitivní, třeba jako něco, cokoliv, berem, cokoliv. A já vám chci říct, jak přemýšlíme my jako trend forecasteři. Jedna z věcí, která nám pomáhá, je, že když vidíme, že vlna dostupuje vrcholu, tak víme, že se zlomí. Ve chvíli, kdy něčeho začne být moc, tak to znamená, že přijde úplný opak. A to je přesně to, co se nám stalo s tímhletím. To, co se nám stalo s pocitem, že všechno vypadá stejně. Po době, kdy naše feedy vypadaly stejně, tak jsme začali hledat něco, co bude autentičtějšího, co bude raw a co bude plný emocí. Něco, co vás překvapí úplně stejně, jako když potkáte třeba hasičskou zbrojnici, kterou navrhla zahádit. Něco, co bude plný emocí, který není potřeba skrývat a kočičkovat a zavalovat filtrama. Něco, co vystoupí z davu a naruší trošku vaše vnímání toho, jak věci mají vypadat. První, kdo se tohohle příběhu chytl, jsou kluci v Silicon Valley. A nečekejte úplně příběh o tom, jak si jednoho dne sedli a řekli si, zkazili jsme jim ty životy, uvědomili jsme si, že Steve Jobs studoval taky kaligrafii, tak se napravíme a uděláme to všechno dobře. Ne. Protože scrollujete ty feedy a přestalo vás to bavit, tak tam netrávíte dost času a nemoc dobře konvertujete. A to znamená, že je nejvyšší čas tam zase dostat do toho příběhu něco, co vás šokuje, zastaví a konvertovat začne. A tak jsme poprvé začali mluvit o vkusu. Proto je můj feed plný Ricka Rubina a proto se znova začínáme bavit o těch lidech. Moje nejoblíbenější historka na téma Rick Rubin je, že si ho teďka najel Anthropic, AI nástroj, na to, aby jim napsal knížku. Oni si najeli člověka na to, aby jim napsal fyzickou knížku. Mně to přijde úplně skvělý. Každopádně, kam jsme se s tím potkali, je, že oni si uvědomili, že je to něco, co zasahuje i je. My jsme velmi dlouhou dobu trpěli nedostatkem. Ve chvíli, kdy jste potřebovali udělat video, překlad, text nebo cokoliv, naprogramovat, tak bylo těžké někoho na to sehnat. A tak jsme si cenili nástrojů, ale teďka ty nástroje máme a tak si ceníme vkusu. Ceníme si právě lidi, jako je Rick Rubin, kteří jsou kurátory, kteří jsou schopní se na to povzníst a říct nám, co je skvělý a co skvělý není. Zamilovali jsme se do vkusu, protože je to návod na komerční úspěch. Dlouho platilo, že abyste prodali produkt, tak máte skvělý produkt, máte cílovou skupinu, placnete na to billboardy, hotovko. To, co se ale změnilo, je, že nám absolutně se změnila definice zákazníka. My už dneska nejsme schopní definovat zákazníka demografií, ale už ho definujeme sentimentem, subkulturou, ve který se pohybuje. A úplně jinak budu mluvit na clean girls, který milují pilates a pijou zelenou maču, a úplně jinak budu mluvit na letenský matky a úplně jinak budu mluvit na vás. A pro každého z nich musím najít tu kulturu, která funguje. A pro každého z nich musím servírovat ty důkazy vkusu, který ukážou, že rozumím té jeho kultuře. Já když jdu do určitého typu restaurace, tak čekám, že tam bude Aesop mydlo na záchodech. A když jdu na Fashion Week, tak čekám, že lidi budou mít tabis od Margiely. A když jdu do určitého butiku, tak čekám, že to tam bude vonit Santalem 33. A to je přesně to, co vlastně jakoby dává najevo, že té kultuře rozumíte. A tak značky dneska o dost víc musí přemýšlet o tom, kde stojí na té kulturní mapě. Kde se budou pozicovat, tak aby ten příběh vyprávěli konzistentně. Jak by vytvoří tu emoci a tu ikonu, která může nad tím vším rezonovat s tím zákazníkem. Jak můžou být tak rozpoznatelný, že ať udělají jakoukoliv kolaboraci, merch anebo pop-up, tak jejich značka bude dávat absolutně smysl. Protože když bude dávat smysl, tak to bude dávat perfektní smysl pro jejich zákazníky a bude to dávat perfektní smysl pro vaše zaměstnance. Ve chvíli, kdy máte silnou kulturu, která z toho vychází, tak jste schopný tu silnou kulturu převést i do toho, jak fungují lidi u vás vevnitř. A podle výzkumu časopisu Psychology Today, firmy, které mají silnou vnitřní kulturu, mají 4,5krát větší návratnost investice. Takže je to něco, co chceme. Vkus je něco, co vám dokáže predikovat budoucnost. Matt Klein, hlavní trend forecaster Redditu, udělal analýzu více než 100 trend reportů, který za posledních pár let vyšly. A to, co mu vyšlo z toho, je, že naprostá většina trend reportů je psaná takzvaným dominantním jazykem. Co to znamená? Že si koupíte trend report v naivní představě, že bude vyprávět o budoucnosti a on vypráví o přítomnosti. Prostě se ptáte na to, co se bude nosit další sezónu a on vám řekne, jsou to Adidas Samba. Druhý nejdominantnější jazyk je reziduální jazyk. To znamená, že to jsou trend reporty, které přestože vám slibují příběhy o budoucnosti, tak mluví o minulosti. Takže na otázku, co se bude nosit další sezónu, jsou to skinny jeans. A jenom malinko trend reportů, který vyprávějí o tom disruptivním jazyce, který vám doopravdy servírují něco, co budoucnost obsahuje. A jsou to právě lidi, třeba jako je Rafa, který dokážou tu budoucnost číst kvůli tomu, že sledujeme něco, čemu se říká signály. A jsou to věci, které nejsou linka ve vašich Google Analytics nebo násobky 5 v Excelu, ale jsou to věci, které najednou začínají vibrovat. A jsou možná maličký, ale díky tomu, že vlastně je sledujeme dlouho, tak my je dokážeme číst a říct, s tím směrem se ten svět bude ubírat. To je to místo, který bude. A díky tomu dokážeme odhadnout, co budou ty další ikony. Až si tady budeme za 20 let povídat, tak na jaký křeslo se budeme koukat se stejným dojetím, jako zrovna na tohle. Vkus je expertíza, vkus se dá naučit. Vracím se zpátky těm originálním kurátorům, editorům a recenzentům. To by byli lidi, kteří to dlouhý roky studovali. A proto ve chvíli, kdy říkali, tahle restaurace je skvělá, tahle galerie je skvělá, tak jste jim věřili. Dneska je to o dost rychlejší. A proto novodobí kuřátoři mají hyper-niche fokus. Snackshot je jeden z mých nejoblíbenějších newsletterů. Píše ho holka a každý týden posílá trend report o tom, co se zrovna děje v pitíčkách, mňaminkách a svačinkách. A ve chvíli, kdy ona něco řekne, tak víte, že se to děje, protože má takový hyperfokus. A to samý je Rafa. Ve chvíli, kdy on něco řekne na téma budoucnost pracovního trhu, tak sklapnete a říkáte ano, prosím. No. Vkus se formuje zvenku. Když jsem říkala, že 5 ze 7 videí potvrzují vaší bublinu a potvrzují tu datafikovanou bublinu, tak jediný způsob, jak se naučit vkus, je vyjít ven mimo tu bublinu. Vyjít ven mimo ty věci, které vypadají pořád stejně. A tam nacházíme něco, co je pro nás úplně nejtěžší. Protože pro mě najít vlastní vkus je odpovědí na otázku, kdo jsem. A protože jenom když mám odpověď na tuhle otázku, tak dokážu říkat, co se mi líbí a co se mi nelíbí. A ve chvíli, kdy mám odpověď na tuhle otázku, tak můžu vytvářet věci, které přežijou všechny hypy a trendy. A může se stát někým, jako je Tadao Ando, Margiela, anebo Imsovi. Něčím, co přežije bez ohledu na to, jaký cottagecore zrovna poběží TikTokem. A tak to, co nás dneska čeká, je ekonomika vkusu. Na jedné straně jsou lidi, kteří žijou ve svých For You pages a koukají se tam na ty věci, které vypadají pořád všechny stejně. A na druhé straně se novýma celebritama stávají kurátoři. A tak se nám do příběhu o influencerech vedle Kim Kardashian a botů dostávají lidi třeba, kteří píšou Substack, anebo vybírají, co má smysl, na co se koukat. Vkus byl vždycky status. Ale teďka to platí víc než kdy jindy. Protože vkus je něco, co vám garantuje vaší pozici do budoucnosti. Vkus je něco, co vám garantuje, že budete fungovat dobře ve společnosti i že vaše firma bude fungovat dobře. A tak je to ideální tato trojkombinace, kterou hledáme. Tak bychom nacházeli něco, co respektuje člověka, naší identitu a setkávalo se to dohromady se vkusem. A vy všichni, co jste tady, tak přesně tohle to víte, protože ten vkus máte. A tak je rok 2025 a vy jste potkali nádhernou holku. Je chytrá, je vtipná, je zábavná a sedí zrovna dneska tady. A vy jste si s ní před chvilkou potřásli rukou pravděpodobně. A vy přesně víte, kam ji vemete, protože přesně víte, co je dobrý. Já vám moc děkuju.
Tak moc děkuju i Pavlíně. A my jsme se teďka dohodli, protože teďka bude taková diskuze, tak aby i Rafa rozuměl, o čem budeme mluvit a na co se budeme ptát, že začneme mluvit angličtině, ale předpokládám, že to nikomu vadit úplně nebude. And I just explained that you probably, but you can surprise me, you're probably not going to understand Czech, so we'll switch into English. Because the last part of the session today is about questions. And maybe before we will go through some questions in Slido, I may really thank you, both of you, about this insight, because what really, it's output which I take out of this. And I'm very happy, that we have this time in today's busy days. We just running around, we're watching TV, we are, reading the messages, we are on social, and everything. And sometimes it's good to really open our minds and have this kind of discussions and talks. And I really believe that we should really think about ourselves as individuals, and not be only part of the groups. You know what I mean by this? After Pavlina and Rafa, because what really makes us different from technology is us, our individuals. We should really slow down in our life and maybe look around a little bit differently. when technology is pushing us to look. My dream is that technology will helps us to create our own, let's say, taste, then vice versa. Maybe it will also work somehow, but I think the emotions which we saw after Rafa's presentations are really something which make us 100% different from today's technology. And I really, really believe it stays like this. Cannot say really, but that's my learning out of today. So maybe Zuzana, if you have a look on the slide, or if there are any questions, because there's definitely more questions.
So thanks a lot for great presentations. I believe that they sparked ignition in the minds of many of us, and we received quite a lot of questions. So let's jump straight into them. I will choose a first one, which is, so this is maybe question for Rafa first. How can you tell when a company is ready to shape the future rather than just respond to the present? What's the last thing you saw at a company or university that made you think your own map of the future?
Okay, I think what is easy to understand, as long everything is under control, you're in the present. As long you know what's next, you're in the present. What you should accept is a part of your life is not in your control. And then you start to jump into the future. Also that you have no answer out of a sudden what you have seen, or maybe you don't understand the things. And that is important. The way how we are trained, how we think and act is of the opposite. We should know everything, forget that. I train my mind that maybe I see something last week in Stanford or maybe at the MIT, and even when the PhD explained that, I have no clue about that. But then my brain is trained 2 or 3 weeks later, ding dong. I know what's about that. So then to the other part of your question is, I would say I see that quite often when companies overcome or reinvent themselves, but the most of the part is the recipe is 4 generations in one team, and not 1 or 2 or 3, all generations one team. Second is out of different domains, and third is that the boss or the leader, whoever, give them the totally ownership to work on this agenda. And then they come up often with results. They are really surprised themselves. Yeah. And for sure it's difficult to do that. Even at Vitra it's difficult. You have to learn that.
To find the right time or...
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, and we are not conditioned for that. Look, we have shelter animals. We have dogs that live 6 years on the chain. And even if you leave them with the chain, they stay there. They're not trained to leave. They even have no instinct. And a little bit, we are like the chicken in the cage. We are not trained to go through the garden, and we have to endeavor our garden. And your garden is quite big, believe me that.
Pavlina, any comments maybe on when it's the right time for change?
You know, I just recently came back from Future Days, which is the biggest conference for trend forecasters. There were over 600 of us. And there was a guy from Dark Matter Labs, it's a great agency, and he said one sentence that really resonated with me, and it is that we are not able to describe the future because we don't have words for it. We don't have yet the capacity for it. So for us, it's like, we can think about it, we can try to picture it, but we are incapable for it because we don't have the language for it. And so when I'm thinking about the future, for me, there's usually the same, when I want to prepare for the future, I want 2 things for myself. I want adaptability and I want optimism. And adaptability is to be able to adjust to things, how they're changing, how they're progressing. And optimism comes from Kevin Kelly, who's the founder of Wired magazine. And he says that the future is shaped by optimists. We don't know how the future will look like. We have scenarios, we have possibilities. And if we are the ones who believe that the future will be great, we can be part of making it great. So for me, it's really about being part of that change, but at the same time staying flexible for that future.
So have the eyes open, for sure. Rafa mentioned generations. I just see another question which asks, how can we design environments that resonate with all 4 generations? How do you see this problematic? Because I think it's quite an interesting topic related to many of the domains you covered in presentation.
Think about maybe of your most preferred place in Prague, where all generations are there. So that is maybe a great, I don't know for sure the place, because I'm not of your city, but I believe this place is existing. So yes, you can do that, there are universal human needs which match to every generation in one term, but also there are dedicated human needs, they are matched to a specific generation. And so first, you should first understand the human needs. There's an interesting toolkit, it's called 77 Human Needs, you can Google that. There's a wonderful, wonderful toolkit, like cards, to play with that and to get a deeper understanding. And the second is also to train the leadership, the management. Yeah, and that, I think, is the hardest thing. It's not about that everyone get his own spot. No, you should have one goal, but in terms of leadership, you should address the way how you deal with your work, with your staff, out of the perspective of this specific generation.
Any comments in terms of taste? This might be interesting.
I might talk about the generation because, inevitably we will have 4 or 5 generations in the workplace. Every 4th European will be over 65 by 2030. It's coming to us, and it's coming to us sooner than we can imagine. And it's actually a good thing that it's coming for us, because according to Harvard Business Review, companies with diverse teams have 170% more likely to innovate. So actually, if we manage to have everybody from different generations, different perspectives, different social circles, different backgrounds in one workplace, then we are actually more likely to develop the future we want. And I think in order to build that multi-generational workplace, when I work with boards, CEOs, leaders, and talk to them about multi-generational workplaces, I mention one word, and I keep repeating it all the time, and it's empathy. So often you meet those managers, and they're like, I know how it should be done. I will tell you. And, there's no empathy. There's no understanding. And I think even the basic human thing, how I treat people the way I want to be treated, would make a multi-generational workplace work the best for us, even without any toolkits, frameworks, and other things.
Mm-hmm. So that's maybe also a way how to think about architecture of the space itself, which is also related to one of the questions. So what is the most critical skill of an architect behind architecture nowadays?
Oh my God, it's a difficult question. So the most critical thing for an architect is forget architecture. You know everything about architecture, but maybe you know nothing about all the other domains. So now is a good time to train your data literacy, to train your future literacy, to train your technology literacy, and to train your human literacy. So that's what I do. As an architecture, I will never go again to an architecture journey to Switzerland or Copenhagen. No, go to subculture journeys. Go to journeys to places you would never go to because you don't feel comfortable there, and challenge yourself. That's what I do as an architect.
So you would jump into something that you don't know, maybe you're afraid of, in totally different domain.
The opposite, yeah. And that is, by the way...
To get a shock and learn, maybe.
Yeah, and also for the most of the jobs, look, a German engineer, he believes he knows everything. And this is a giant trap. We should accept that we know nothing now in these days, and that we have to start by zero. Yeah. And I think the architecture is the same.
Perfect.
According to Stanford University research, I know, I do have a good memory. It's not rehearsed, it is really me. On average, you change your career during lifetime 5 to 6 times, and you change your job 12 times. So actually, like kind of a job title. And it is expected by 2030 for those numbers to double. So I think, you know, the fact that you studied architecture, that you are currently a practicing architect, doesn't mean you will be in the future. And that's maybe a good news, you know, because it can be really exciting for you to start something else, you know. And you can, for example, start wearing other colors than black, you know, so that's kind of a good thing.
I like the optimism. Maybe this is
That's
utopia.
quite brave.
I have dated too many architects to know that's the key skill, to look good in black. So I think that's kind of, and how you should perceive our careers. For me, when I have university students asking me, hey, what I should study, what I should, you know, should I go medicine, should I go law, should I go something? I always tell them, look for something that doesn't have a name yet. Because that is the future, AI strategist, content creator, social media, something. Go for something that's not yet created and create it for yourself. That's where your job is. It's not by trying to, you know, go for the jobs that your father had. You know, my father is still working in an insurance company. He got the gold watch. He's the one, but not me. And the world is not like that anymore.
That brings me to another question. What are some jobs that don't exist yet, but you would believe they will in 5 years?
5 years from now. Yeah, the manager for strategic surprises will exist then. So that means we now get kind of shocks. So in business, and by the way, we get more shocks, but we are not trained to deal with these shocks. So it started in the army. So in the army, there's a topic, strategic surprise, during when if you fight against your enemy, he do something, you have no idea what he's doing. And I think that will be implemented in business. More people who think every day, what kind of surprise comes around the corner tomorrow? I would love. And I also believe there will be the chief fantasy officer in the company also, who deals with fantasy.
See, this is where you're heading.
Yeah, one of these two topics. Yeah.
I think we are both designing the jobs for ourselves. So I'll mention 2 of them. One is connected to space, and I think there will be serendipity designers. People who will design spaces in order for people to meet, but in general places, in public, and so on. And there's another one that's kind of as old as age, but it's coming back, and it's a matchmaker. It's my plan for when AI takes over the world. I'm going to be a matchmaker. Because if you see how we are growing apart as genders, how we are growing apart as society, how the #1 use case for AI is therapy and companionship, we will need somebody else who will say, hey, he's a nice guy, she's a nice girl, you will get them together. So that's my theme. But, you know. See you in there.
Very nice. Maybe you can align with the head of surprises and it'll be a good match. So next one is maybe a tougher one. Imagine you have to come up with an idea for episode for a White Mirror series like Black Mirror, but optimistic about future and technology. What would it be about? An optimistic version of Black Mirror.
An optimistic version would be like, think about, we get all the opportunity to get the best education, whatever we want or wish for ourselves, and which helps us to develop our full potentials. I think that would be an amazing case. Yeah.
So maybe new ways of learning,
whatever. Yeah. However, if it is new ways of learning, but also like to get an idea how to develop your own potential. There is this field of genius and field of expertise. So what is the difference? The field of genius, if you're an expert in your job, you're an expert, but it's still your job. But if you achieve the field of genius, it combines the best out of your talents and expertise, and it is the perfect matchmaking for your life. So, and I think we all have a kind of an inner voice, but often this inner voice is not developed quite well, that you have no idea about direction, or maybe your parents don't engage you to go forward, or maybe yourself. And that would be amazing if we all understand better our inner voice and find the right spot for us.
So explore the ways how to find inner genius in ourselves.
Or like an inner genius, yeah, that would be perfect. I would love that.
I might sound pessimist, but I would coin myself as a realist. I believe every coin has two sides. And if there's a very positive side, there must be a very negative side to it as well. And I think it was the same story that I was telling you about the internet, how we thought it would be the great space, you know, and look how it turned out. And I would like to invite you to kind of one exercise. I tried it in Lisbon during the Future Days, and I very much loved it. We took one historic event that we take for granted, like discovering oil. And we imagined the world in now or 2060, how it would operate if this didn't happen. And you know, you would find out soon that maybe you would erase something that was truly horrible, and still it didn't take us to a better future, or it might have. But for me, this was such a nice, challenging way of labeling things and labeling futures how I want them or how I want them not.
Very good.
I feel like I'm at the school, you know, and you are giving me grades for my answers. But
No,
yeah.
no.
When you're
I
like,
don't want you
very
to
good.
no make you feel like that. So next one, with AI getting work done, how do we humans not lose our sense of purpose?
Honestly, but I think with or without AI, that should never happen, to find our sense for purpose. That never should be a case, because for all of us, there's so many things to do with purpose, how we support, help, whatever we could do to contribute, even it's the planet, to your neighborhood, kids, I don't know what, even your parents. Nah, that should never happen.
So you're very optimistic in rather AI helping us to maybe expand new ways and...
Yes and no, but I think this purpose topic is something you can totally disconnect from technology.
We shouldn't be afraid of...
Yeah. If that happens, I think then you have a real issue. Okay. You should watch less Netflix.
Any comments on that? Or we jump?
I'm thinking, you know, shouldn't we like go for drinks or like, that's my comment about it. I really need to pee.
With the last question, short one. As a trend scout, Rafa, was there ever a trend prediction that you got terribly wrong? That's maybe a nice one to close.
Yeah, sure. It was, I believe that Adam Newman will rule the world with WeWork. But you know the end of the story. So that goes terribly wrong.
That's the only one.
Yeah, well, that's a major one, yeah.
Perfect.
Mine was metaverse, but yeah, we all did it.
Okay, great. So if no one has more questions or you got enough information, which I believe you did, then I think we can wrap it up. Thank you very much for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. And hopefully see you next time on other events that we will organize.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Pavlína. And thank you very much, Rafa, for coming to Prague. Enjoy, hezký večer vám přeju. A nashledanou.